in Chrome, suppose I have to investigate, suppose the sign in button, right? You right click on the Chrome and you'll get Chrome Inspector. Okay, you'll get the option inspect element. You click on it and you will get a window like this. It is a little different than Firefox, but you can actually investigate the page like this. For example, this is my button over here, sign in button. You'll have all the properties over here. Value equals to sign in means that on this button sign in is written. Okay, so this is a very powerful tool, Chrome Inspector. Actually, you can actually go and change the values as well. If I write over here Ashish, then you will actually see Ashish written on the submit page submit button of Gmail page. Fine. So now what happens in IE, right? In Chrome, the shortcut for opening the Chrome Inspector is F12. Okay, you open Chrome and hit F12, you will get a window like this. Similarly, in IE as well, you open IE, go to a website and hit F12, you will get the IE Developer Inspector window as well. Okay, so in all the browsers you can investigate the links. I am not doing it in IE because, as I told you, I am on a server operating system taking a class out here. I have IE6 with me in Windows Server 2003. Okay, but you can press F12 in IE as well and you can make this work. Fine. Now I just told you how to investigate the web pages in different browsers. Fine. Now let's come back to the main thing, that what all are the various components you want to deal with in web-based testing, because Selenium is basically for web-based testing. Question being asked is, basically we have to declare the objects like this before Selenium coding. Yes, before we code in Selenium we need to identify the objects, right? We need to know what type of objects which we need to know the manual test cases, right? Technically speaking, when you are going to automate a website, what you do, you don't just go onto the website and start automating. No, the thing is like you go for the manual test cases, because we automate when the sites are stable, right? So you don't just go to the website and start automating it. You take the manual test cases and then automate the manual test cases. And then you observe what all objects will you be interacting with. You identify all those objects. There are various mechanisms to identify the objects. I'll talk about all of them. Fine. So out here, these are the various web components with which we'll be dealing with. Fine. Now the link has a tag name called A. It is standard. All the links on all the web pages will have the tag name A, that is anchor tag. If you suppose I go to the site, say bbc.com, right? And if you investigate any link with Chrome, with this Firefox investigator, if you take this link for example, it's got the tag name A, anchor tag. All the links on all the web pages will have the tag name A, right? And there will be an attribute. Look, what is the tag? First of all, in a web page, all of these are tags. Whatever it starts with a conical bracket, they are all tags. Fine. And every component has got a tag associated with it and set of attributes. For example, div is a tag here. Fine. And class is an attribute associated with that tag. Or div is a tag here. ID, class, all these are attributes associated with this tag. Fine. So if you hold on, if I open up my browser, sorry, if I go to this anchor tag A, you will see that href is the attribute associated with this tag. Href actually will point will point towards the URL which opens up when you click on this link. Okay, when you click on this link, href will actually point towards the URL which will open. Fine. So out here in my sheet, I'll update this. This is a mandatory tag. Href. Href is a mandatory tag for the URL which is supposed to open when you click on the link. Similarly, input field. If you look at any input field on this page, is there any input field? Hold on. I don't think so. Yeah, search is an input field on the top. Thanks, Milind. If you investigate this field, an input field has the tag name input. Okay, it will always have a tag name input, right? And from my experience, I know that button, radio button, and checkboxes, they also have the tag name input. The upload button has also got the tag name as input. Okay, so how are they different? They differ in the attribute, the mandatory attribute. For any input field, there will be an attribute called type equals to text, which will denote that this is a field in which you can type. This is a mandatory attribute. It will be there with all the input fields on all the web pages. Okay, so this is the mandatory thing, right? Hold on. Okay, now let's go to the Gmail page. On Gmail, you have got checkboxes and all everything. So this is a checkbox. Fine. If you look at this checkbox, then this checkbox has also got the tag name as input, but it's got the type as checkbox. Fine. So all the checkboxes will have the tag name input, but type as checkbox. Okay. If you talk about a button, for example, sign in is a button. All the buttons would have the type equals to submit. This will always be present. Okay, no matter what, this would always be present. A radio button, well, radio button has got type equals to radio. Okay, so all these, and upload has got type equals to upload. Fine. So all these elements have the tag name input, but the type attribute is different. Drop list. In case of Gmail, we have a drop list here, which denotes in which various country names are present. If you observe this list with Firebug, you will see that it's got the tag name as select. Fine. Under the select tag, there are various other tags. These are option tags, and each option tag represents look at the structure. Okay, structure is important in case of drop list. Fine, because later on when you pull out values from this list, you'll actually use the structure. The tag name for drop list is select, but under this tag, if you expand that, you will have various option tags, and each option tag will denote the option which is present inside the drop list, and in the end you will see that the tag name closes. So this is the structure. Fine. So the drop list has got the tag name select. There is no mandatory attribute for drop list. No attribute, no mandatory attribute. Okay. In case of the text which is present on the page, fine, this normal text on the page, there is no specific tag name. Sometimes it comes under div, sometimes under span, sometimes under para tag. Fine. There are many tags. Okay, you just cannot categorize the text into a single tag, and there is no mandatory attribute as such. Okay, in case of an image, right? For example, Google is an image on the top. This is an image. Fine. If you look at this image in Firebug, you will see that there's a tag name called img associated with this image. Okay, there's a tag name called img, and there's a mandatory attribute called src, which will point towards the URL from which this image is coming up. Okay, this hold on. This is the URL from which this image is coming up. If you go to this URL, you'll actually see this image. Okay, so in case of an image, the mandatory attribute is src, which points towards the location from this image is coming. Okay, now what are optional attributes? These attributes generally are like id, name, class, right? Generally these three attributes, they fall under the optional attributes category. Okay, fine. Now out here, all these things, the mixture of tag names, mandatory attributes and optional attributes, are used to identify the objects in Selenium. Okay, if you look at the Gmail login page, for example, I look at the username field, you will see that this username field has got an attribute called name, ID associated with. These are not mandatory. Okay, they can be present, they cannot be present. Without them, the field can exist. But generally, it's a good practice to ask the developers to give ID and names to all the elements on the page so that we can identify them easily with automation tools. Whether it is QTP, Silk Test, Selenium, it becomes very easy. Right. So, okay. Fine. Let's do one thing. Right. Questions are being asked here. Can JavaScript be used to identify set attributes on a web page if Selenium? Yes, that's the ultimate thing. If Selenium fails, you use JavaScript because JavaScript is the language which actually interacts with the web page. Fine. We'll see that once we see JavaScript executor in Selenium. We'll see that. Is there any precedence while identifying the object? No, there is nothing like that. What is the difference between interface and class? I answered this. Is it possible that a tag and mandatory attribute will be same? No. Okay, it's not that. The tag name is always unique. Every HTML component has a standard tag. If you go to the page source of any page, you will see that in Firebug all the tag names are highlighted with this color and all everything. Okay, right? So it is not playing. Fine. Rajesh, I'll come back to that. I'll have to check it out. What's the problem you're facing in the video number 22? I'll have to check it out. I'll not take it in the class as of now. Fine. Right. Okay. So as I was telling you, that these are the various components. These are the tag names, set of mandatory attributes and set of optional attributes used to identify the objects on the web page. Okay, now how do we identify them? Right, in Selenium, okay, uh, in Selenium, if you go to the documentation again, like this was the documentation, right? Okay, now I will go into WebDriver now. How WebDriver is used to identify the objects. Fine. Before that, right? Yesterday somebody was asking me a question. How is WebDriver different than RC? And I didn't answer that deliberately because at that time I never wanted to take this up. If you type over here Selenium RC, Java doc, right? You will actually get the link to RC Java documentation. Okay. And if Firebug is not able, Firebug never fails. I've never seen it failing. If Firebug is not able to identify the object, then go into the page source and identify it manually. That is the only solution. If you are not able to identify the object using Firebug, right click on the page, go to the page source, find the object and identify it. This is an open source tool. They never take care of your ease of development when they make this kind of tool. Okay, you have to be little bit technical and you have to scratch a lot. Fine, so that's how you do it. You have to do it manually, Sita. You have to, for each project you have to bring in the jar files. Okay, yeah, I can send you this Excel file after the class. Just send me a message, I'll send you the Excel file. Yes, you have to add for every project. That's why we have a tool known as Maven. If anybody has heard about this tool Maven, we have that kind of a tool which automatically brings in all the jar files. Okay, so you don't have to manually add them again and again. Right. Now let's move further. Right, if you go into the documentation, I was telling you this is the web Java doc for Selenium RC, which is the older version. You see the number of classes. In this there was just this Selenium interface, which was the main one, interface Selenium, and the default Selenium class was implementing it. And if you look at the WebDriver, this is the Java documentation. It's huge. Okay, so rather than improving this, they thought why not build it again, and they built it in a very different way. Okay, now in this documentation, if you look at the WebDriver interface, you will find that there is a function called find element. Okay, and the return type, what this function returns you, this function returns you the object reference of a web element interface. Web element, what is web element? Technically, don't get confused with the web element of QTP here. If you have studied QTP, forget about it. Fine, right? This is not the web element related to QTP. Many people, they get confused over here. In Selenium, what they did, technically they assume that everything on a web page is a web element. That is, on a page like this button is also a web element, this text is also a web element, input field, link and all, everything is a web element. Fine. And in this interface, all these other functions which you can perform with the web element, for example, clear will clear the value of the text field or a web element, click, fine, get location, get size, get text, is displayed, fine, all these, submit. Okay, all these are the general functions which are associated with any element or a web element on a page. And in the documentation, the find element function present inside the WebDriver interface, it returns you the object of web element. For example, let us look at it practically. Okay, instead of eBay, I'll write Gmail. Let's go to Gmail. Right. Let's go to Gmail. Fine. And on Gmail, I will write driver.find element. Right. I need to find an element on the page. Okay. On which criteria I need to find an element? Find element function is present inside the driver. Okay, WebDriver interface. So you write driver dot find element and you give the criteria, that is by. By is another class. Everything is inbuilt. Okay, by is another class inside the API, right? Inside WebDriver API. Fine. In this class, there are functions like class name, CSS selector equals ID, link text, name, partial link text. All these things are static. You can call them directly by the class name, that is driver.findName by dot. If I put a dot, you get all the options. That is class, CSS selector, ID, link, text, name and all, everything. Okay, I select the option that is by the ID. I want to identify the element on the basis of its ID. If you look at the gmail.com homepage, fine. If you look at the username field, okay, it's of the type input. ID is email. Not a developer is smart enough to give an ID to this field, so you'll be able to find it by the ID. And what this function will return you, this function will return you object of the web element class. Web element username equals to this. Okay, similarly the password field would also fall under web element category. Web element password equals to driver.find element by the ID, and I will find out the ID of the password field. If you look at the password field over here, this is the ID of the password field. Okay, you copy this and go here by the ID password. Fine. You have a username field, you have a password field, they have the email and password associated with, right, as IDs. So you extract them, right? Now, sometimes people ask me a question, what if two elements on the page have the same ID? First of all, if two elements on the page have the same ID, better go to the developer and tell him to remove that kind of functionality. Okay, because it's not good if two elements have the same ID on the page. Okay, right? And even if they have, then what happens? Right, now when Selenium it searches for the object on a page, how it searches? It starts searching on the from the top left corner and goes to the bottom right corner. It starts like this. Okay, it scans it like this. So if there are two objects on the page with the same ID, one is suppose out here and this one is out here, so this one will be found first and Selenium will use it. Okay, whatever element is found first, Selenium will use it. If you look at the Java documentation, then find element description is find the first web element using the given method. Okay, fine. So if there are two objects having the same ID, Okay, one is out here, one is out here. Selenium will find this one. What if I have to use this one, right? I will tell you about that. I will tell you everything. Fine. There are ways, but always remember, find element will find the first object representing that element. Okay. Now you can use anything. If I have to type in the username field, I can write username dot, and you will get all the functions which are present in the WebDriver Webelement Interface coming up over here. The function out here send keys is used to type into an element. If I write here send keys hello and password dot send keys world, it will type hello in username, world in password. If you run this, hold on, right, it goes here and you see it types hello and world, right. Now uh, right now out here you have got other mechanisms to identify the object as well. For example, class name, CSS selector, ID we just saw. You can also write the link text or the partial link text. Fine. Name, tag name and all these things can be used. We'll talk about all of them, right? Name is again an optional attribute which I just talked about few minutes back. You can use it. In the Gmail page, the input field has got also the password field has got a name as well associated with it. If you want, you can use it. Right. Um, out here there is a mechanism known as by the XPath. Okay, by the XPath. Now how do you use XPath? Fine, how do you use XPath? What is an XPath? Let's talk about that first. Okay, XPath is like the location of the element on the page. It represents the location on there are two types of XPaths, absolute and partial XPaths. For example, on this Gmail page, right, if I have to find the XPath of this username field, right, this is the username field, this one. Okay, then technically if somebody asks you to make an XPath, you will start from the root of the document. That is, everything starts from HTML tag. So you will make an XPath like this. There are tools to find out XPaths as well. I'll talk about them, but let's first understand how XPath is made. You will start from the HTML tag. Inside the HTML tag, there is a body tag. We have to go under the body tag to reach the email field. Under the body tag, there is a division tag, div, right? This is the division tag. Under the division tag, these are all the tags under which in the second division tag my email field is located out here. Okay, so this is the second division tag under the earlier division, so you'll write over here div2 and you will keep on navigating like this till the time you reach the input tag of the email field, which is out here. So this is one of the ways to make an XPath. The problem is that with this, if something changes in between, tomorrow if some change comes up and something changes, then everything will go for a toss. You can find this XPath using Firebug as well. I'll first tell you how to find the XPaths with Firebug and then I'll talk about various types of XPaths. Right. So Right. Give me 2 minutes, guys. Give me 2 minutes. I just need